will call the order. Who wants to take notes today?
I'll try,
I'm sure you'll
see if I
do
can find
an
them.
excellent job.
No, my notes are fine, it's just finding them, and
Oh, yeah, have we found?
no, we haven't.
No,
If I don't
okay.
find them by the next meeting, I'll actually watch the tape.
Ouch.
That's the penalty.
Yeah, I get you.
That is a penalty.
So 5:02 it is.
My mom yelled the other day, she's like, you're on TV. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, historical commission, I'm like, turn that off. I don't want to be on TV. It's gonna hurt their chances of getting people to be on these committees.
I move we accept the minutes from the May 8th meeting.
Second.
All in favor? We are not hybrid, I guess. I'm logged in because I want to share my screen, but so we don't have to do a roll call or anything. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi. Thank you for doing the minutes so quickly and wonderfully. So I was gonna update, let's see, approval of the minutes, update on input from Collins Center. I will get to that. Where is my stuff? So I told them, our discussion about just changing the bylaw might be a good way to go. And their first, I mean, I led with, we understand it's preferred to do a special act binding, harder to change, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, we prefer, I'm like, yes, I led with that. So,
Weren't you listening?
yeah, well, I always try to short circuit people's objections, but it doesn't usually work, so it's worth a try. But so then they said there may be some things in state law that a special act could override to give authorities to the town administrator. And I said, okay, I hadn't thought of that, or that a special act could override state law. That's cool. So then I pushed on it a little bit. I was like, well, people were really excited about the bylaws. So if we're gonna go back for a special act, I'm gonna need to give them some, concrete, like, here's why we need to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll read the response that I got, that one, they pretty much failed on at that point. I mean, their advice
They quit while they were
is
ahead.
absolutely right. I get their position, but we're a small segment of the population, and we're gonna, if we change the bylaw, apparently we don't even have a prospective town administrator applicant anymore. So it's all kind of, there's no big rush to
There's
get
a
it.
more reason to
enshrined.
need the bylaw.
Well, bylaw we can do quickly, yeah,
So
so
no, we need better candidates, not
Yeah.
better plans.
that's, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it probably pays pretty well for a small town, obviously, and that, I'm like, who's got a job that makes them qualified for this, but is paid less than what we can pay? And I'm thinking that's a pretty small
Well,
pool, because we're such a small town. Like, who's in a smaller town who wants to move up?
the way I look at it is totally differently. I say, look, what's the cost of not having the very best person we can get,
Oh,
even if it costs more than what people are thinking? What's the cost?
I agree.
What's the annual town budget? $23 million now?
Yeah, I
Wow.
think it's 23.
Yeah.
And, every day when a decision is not being made, that costs us money.
Yeah.
Or every time we continue to put up with something that we shouldn't put up with.
We're lucky we have Mike, but
Yeah.
what's not being done at the police department while he's, I don't know who, he might have a great deputy or something, but still, it's more work than they all need to be doing.
I don't know what there's a tendency in Hadley to look at somebody to do things like, that they can do the highway department. Well, that to me isn't what we need. We already have somebody that we got to do that. What we need is somebody who knows how to oversee the various departments. Really, and to know whether, the skill to direct those people efficiently.
Yeah, I guess we didn't get that. Anyway, so I found the email, and we'll just read it to you so that we're all on the same page. They had thought that, they said they had a contact in the Attorney General's office and they hadn't heard back from that person, so. So what they settled on is the Collins Center is not opposed to having Hadley use the bylaws to strengthen its town administrator position. We believe a special act is preferable, but that is the community's decision. Determining any legal limitations on the town administrator's authority from a bylaw versus a special act is not a simple task. There's no manual that the AG's office uses to approve bylaws, and there's no reliable database for the center to document the AG's decisions over time. That should be addressed. We should know what the AG decisions are. When seeking guidance from the current official from the AG's office, we will need to provide some specific examples and possibly draft language of what the committee has in mind. As a result, I recommend that the committee use its next meeting to try to reach a consensus on the major aspects of the town administrator's position that it seeks to establish and or strengthen. Special attention should be paid to the scope of appointing authority of department heads, the ability to approve hiring and other personnel functions, the extent of responsibility for preparing and submitting the budget, the responsibility for approving contracts and procuring goods and services, and the control over the use and maintenance of town buildings and facilities. The end. So we actually have a lot of those things are already in the bylaw for. So what I have up here, see if I can make it bigger, is just the current bylaw. So if anyone that hasn't looked at it lately, you can see, get bigger. So it's pretty simple. And I also have a document, I went through the South Hadley one. We can, once I put it in one document, we can, there are things in South Hadley that we like, but we're not sure about the wording, we can look at the other examples and mix and match, but I figured just start with one. But this is our current one, and it is simple, but it covers a lot of the stuff they're talking about already. So, just scroll through it. It's got appointment. So duties and responsibilities is the big part where there's a lot more language in South Hadley, but not necessarily a lot more authority. So they did very lawyerly, not limited, but for all that stuff. So I thought there wasn't a huge gap, and I looked more closely at the chart that Collins Center had sent us last month, and they basically did a gap analysis saying like, this is what, our bylaw says nothing, and this is what others say. So that's why I had said I was going to do a gap analysis, but that's basically already done, so I didn't do that. I did this cut and pasty sort of thing. So that's the extent of our current bylaw. It's less than 3 pages. And I like the plain language approach, unless, we can look at the bulkier language that is stop sharing, in South Hadley and see if it's filling a gap that we have. And I think in a couple of situations it is, but for the most part, they're just using a lot of words to say the same thing.
Okay, so where there are gaps that we can identify, we can just paste those in.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the big thing that I think we don't have, and of course, it's not in our town administrator bylaw because it's about the select board, and that wouldn't be in our town administrator bylaw. But in these special acts, the first section is about the select board, and we don't really have anything that I could find that says what the Hadley Select Board can do or does. So
once again, I would just say there's a huge body of statutory law.
yes,
So, and I don't pretend to be a municipal law expert, but.
yeah, nor probably are any of our select people or residents.
Yeah, I don't know how much has to be spelled out. There's a tendency in bylaws paraphrase the statutes.
Which is not as good as just using
That you
statute.
could take up a lot of space doing that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I would might be a good question to
short board.
to
Members.
first of all, I'd ask to the select board if that's something they would like to see developed, and then maybe even talk to town council about how much is unspecified.
Yeah, I just cut and paste what South Hadley had. And I mean, it's all, I think this is probably all set by law. It's just a matter of what words you use to describe things. It's the chief policy making body. All executive powers given to the boards of selectmen by law. So this is, I mean, it's pretty simple, but we don't have, other than obviously our board of selectmen will follow the law and use the authority that they have. We don't have it nicely written down anywhere like this, so it's something to consider. I don't know if the select board would want it or if we want to do it, but I put it in this document just so people can see the sort of
Yeah, no, I think it's a good.
stuff that's out there.
If anything that comes up while we're going through this, is fair to
Yeah.
just flag.
And I just edited it to the point, that so they have this section that says what the select board shall appoint. And I had gone through our bylaws and the statutes we've adopted as far as our Hadley website is. And created a list of who the select board actually appoints. And we talked about this last time. There's, the finance committee is weird because it's the moderator who appoints them, but the select board appoints all these, and I put the bylaw site in there just in case if anyone wants to go back and look, it's in there.
Has anyone discovered why in Hadley, the finance committee appoints the finance committee?
The moderator.
A moderator.
Nope.
It was suggested that maybe at the time it was just to give him something else to do. Or her to give something else to do.
Do we pay the moderator?
I think we did like $100 a year.
Man, they don't need something extra to do for $100. That's a tough job, town meeting. I would want to run that.
Yeah, but,
God bless them.
no, I think there was no particular reason.
The select board just had enough to do.
Well, and what came up in the town administrator interviews was that the candidate who is the current Williamsburg town administrator has a 9-member elected finance committee.
Wow. 9-member elected. How do they get 9 people to run their finance committee? How big is Williamsburg?
Half our size, maybe a little less.
That's impressive if they fill those seats.
Yeah.
Well, they're also nowhere near the retail
Oh,
center of the town, of the
No one
county.
is.
So the budget they are dealing with has cracked $10 million for the first time.
All right.
Wow.
Yes, this is what I put in for you guys. I'll email this to you. I didn't want to do it before it was discussed at the meetings of, open meeting laws and all that stuff. But now that it's being shared with the world, I can give you that.
So it is safe to send everyone.
As long as they
Thanks.
don't comment.
Yes, as long as you send it without expressing an opinion.
Mhm.
And maybe you can put a statement in, please do not reply all.
Okay, I'll do that.
Um,
I really just did
To
it
the
this
select board?
afternoon, so you wouldn't have been able to see it
Well, no, to
anyway.
us, if Mary was sending us something,
Mhm.
you can send it,
Mhm.
you just can't.
We can't deliberate.
So a school committee member did get in trouble for sending, in that case, what she sent was her evaluation of the superintendent
Oh,
along with everyone else's.
oh,
And I'm not sure what the solution there would have been, but a document like this is not the category of expressing an opinion, really. And you can send it, you just can't reply all. In fact, apart from maybe saying there was a typo in a few pages, you shouldn't even reply to the sender.
Mhm.
And when I do that for planning board, I just say for discussion in our next meeting.
good to know. I just don't want to get in trouble. So, so I thought, just my limited knowledge, there's really nothing we need. I don't see anything wrong or missing, and, we've established the position. That's what's in the existing. It's the red stuff is what I've added from, the South Hadley one. So the only thing I thought was missing for term of office, and I mean, it's implied, but it doesn't hurt to add that the person may be appointed for successive terms of office. As it's currently written, we have a town administrator appointed for a 3-year term, and that's,
Mhm.
it's implied they could be appointed again, but I thought that was a nice phrase to add. So that's my suggestion. Any vacancy, so the first sentence is all we have, those should be filled as soon as possible, well, and the last sentence. And the board appoints a suitable person, which seems to have worked very well in this case. South Hadley has all of this detail about when it happens, the select board appoints a screening committee, which our select board did in this case anyway. I have no opinion on whether we want to put into the bylaw that that's how it's gonna work when we select a new town administrator, or just leave it as it is.
I would be inclined to, inclined to leave that out.
I too. Thoughts?
David,
Just because it might be, it might seem more appropriate to the select board at any particular time to pick
Differently.
a specific person. Whether we have an assistant town administrator in the job one day
Yeah.
or,
Just promote them.
yeah, I mean, there obviously, there's a political cost to doing what Howie Carr calls a nation, quote unquote, nationwide search. But sometimes it just is, it makes sense. The high school, for example, the superintendent has had, school committee has had committees to replace the principal, and they've also just hired internally.
Yeah. The
So,
vice principal.
so I think it would be sort of
Yeah, why tie their hands?
discretion.
I agree.
So it gives the select board more discretion.
Yeah.
Or alternatives.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
watch all of their meetings, but I don't think they had any trouble figuring out how to select a new town administrator. I think they all figured that out pretty easily. So this again, to me, I added this red stuff. It's just bulking up what we have. I don't know if it adds anything. Yeah, just maybe just more words for the same sentence. But that's something. Can you guys see that? I'm gonna get bigger. Oh, too big.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's basically South Hadley language.
Yeah, so it's just sort of a summary, and then it gets more
Mhm.
detailed.
The only thing I would add, and I don't know if it really is essential, is for the development and implementation of town policies established by the select board, because
Whoops.
I don't know how, it's not like a lot of policies spring full blown out of the mind of the select board.
Yeah, that would be a lot to have to come up with. But again, I don't know that having more words actually changes what
And,
we have.
I also don't think it necessarily matters, because if, doesn't matter where the idea comes from, as long as the select board implements it, then it is the policy, so.
Sure. So this, the stuff that I think the select board was most concerned about, and that we don't have a lot of detail in, like who appoints who. It does have, where's the start of our language? Just says supervise everyone within the jurisdiction of the select board. Then, what is it about who they
That's a do.
exercise general supervision over the personnel, organization, systems and practices of the select board's office. That, this is where we don't have that, where we would need to add something if we want to have the town administrator hire the department heads and just inform the select board, if we think that would be better. I think that's sort of what the select board is looking at. Or if not the department heads, at least let the department heads or the town administrator hire everyone
I
else.
thought that was addressed up above a little bit now. Yeah, appointment authority. Okay.
Yeah, this is new stuff. We don't have this. So town administrator appoint and remove all other department heads. I don't think they have that authority now. I think the select board has to do all of that.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, so I see the distinction.
So yeah, so those department heads, I guess, is the fire,
I would
Chief.
think the fire chief should be in there.
yeah.
South Hadley has two separate fire districts,
Yeah.
so
We call him chief of the fire department. What's his official title in that?
Or chief.
Yeah, so A is the town administrator basically is gonna find these department heads, but has to get the hiring approved by the select board. In part B, the administrator can do pretty much all the other people. They need to consult, if it's the employee of another board, they need to consult with that board if they want to do something. But they don't have to go back to the select board. Because the big difference that we've been
Yeah.
discussing.
I wonder why town accountant is included in A.
I don't know. I can take that out.
We did have at one time an in-house town accountant. We have not for probably 8 years. We contract that out.
Okay,
So, and then I don't think you necessarily have to even mention it because it falls under, other employees.
and I think the third line in B says, other employees for whom no other method is provided under this bylaw, so, you know, if you ever wanna bump someone up to A, you can just change A and it's covered by that phrase in B. So I don't know who else we might, maybe Parks and Recs becomes a $20 million organization. We wanna put the head of Park and Rec up there. They do a lot. It just doesn't cost them. Oh, I tried to change where it says act to bylaw. I missed this one. Because we're not talking about an act. Sorry. Format issues. I don't have to fix these here. I'm just compulsive. So the other piece of this is that department heads in C, department heads can appoint and remove, subject to approval of the town administrator, all of their employees. So that, all of that stays out of the select board's hands too there. I mean, I think the town administrator can, every week submit a list of personnel changes if they want, just to keep the board informed, but they wouldn't have to raise it at a meeting and say, this is who I think we should hire for groundskeeping. And,
Yeah.
we're gonna discuss
We have a
that.
snowstorm coming, we need a driver.
Yeah. Let's have 45 minutes discussion at the select board meeting. Well, you know what? It's not an easy thing to drive a snowplow well, as you can tell by all the giant shields people have built up in front of their mailboxes.
Fortified concrete.
I went back here, I'm like, why are all these, what is that? Like, they just keep taking out everyone's mailbox.
It's a message to the DPW.
No, there's also a certain, I know that, the attorney across the street from me had a mailbox and they caught a video of someone swinging a bat at it.
That is fun for the young people.
Yeah.
They blew ours when I was a little kid, probably early eighties or late seventies. Someone would put like a cherry bomb or something in ours and blew it up. I don't know if Dad was on the school committee or something. He displeased someone that way. It wasn't me. I was delightful child. But you know, kids do stuff like that. But I mean, the DPW is probably hearing from the mail carriers going like, I can't reach the mailboxes, so get closer. So I try to go and shovel. Hopefully they can get our mail.
Yeah.
I digress. That's why the mailboxes get hit, I suspect. And where did this? Oh boy, there's a lot more. Yeah, let's just. About where we have people who are, I think, maybe serving in multiple roles or have multiple lines of reporting. We can't just ignore the boards to which the person reports. That's all that stuff is. This we don't have anything about. There's more of it. Where'd it go? Oh, this is a bigger version of that. Like up there, it says that basically they can transfer an employee, you know, if they need someone in a different department temporarily.
Yeah.
But this is a big change, I think, and I don't know how people feel about it, but giving the town administrator the right to reorganize, consolidate, establish, and basically to run the town hall the way they see fit. Like, we don't need, you know, two people in HR, just make those changes and change the, you know, the funding that, you know, obviously you have to change who you're paying if you change the things around. So it would give the town administrator that kind of authority.
Yeah, so I think that's fine as long as it's with select board approval.
Yeah, and that's line 3, which I don't think we have anything in the current bylaw that, you know, is clear that the town administrator can make that kind of change. Obviously, I mean, think of it unilaterally. They don't make it unilaterally. They have to take it to the board, but I don't know enough about select board meetings. You know, the town administrators coming in and saying like, you know, I want to consolidate these 2 jobs and.
So the town administrator is at every select board.
Yes.
Yeah, and does a report, and you would introduce a policy if there's something I would think.
They feel like they can come in, they don't have to just take the workforce as it's currently. I can't think of the word.
Constituted.
It's a good one. As long as they feel, we don't need to spell it out if that's all. People always understand that they're free to propose different organizations if they feel it's not working efficiently.
The select board's approval always mean a voice vote or vote among the 5.
Well, it needs a vote among the 5,
Yeah.
so would not necessarily be a roll call vote. There are only 5, you can see who's.
Someone's scowling, that's a no.
Good.
Okay, perspective transfer. I don't know that we need specifically say that personnel appointments shall be based on education, skills and experience, but I agree with that,
Well, it's fine, but it also appears in the prior section.
doesn't it? Isn't that for appointment of,
Oh, department heads.
I think it says the town administrator. Where is that? I did see that.
Yeah, I just saw it as you were going by, so I think it was in the section, 6.4.
Well, we can make sure it's not duplicative if we decide we want to keep it.
Yeah, there's the E.
There's no, should we say? Why don't I just search for it? Skills.
Okay, I'm sure I'd seen it, or maybe you had just been scrolling through
Yeah, maybe.
that.
Oh, there it is. I think this is for the hiring of the town administrator. Yeah, that's in our
Okay.
current. Should be based on executive and administrative qualifications. So this applies to different people, so it's not repetitive.
I'd like to go back to the finance committee.
There's a finance section of this.
What does South Hadley do? Finance committee.
There's financial. They have I've highlighted appropriations committee. We don't have one of those. We had the finance committee.
Right.
So is that the same thing?
I think that's essentially the same thing.
Yeah,
Well, there's the finance committee and then there's the long range, there's the
Capital
capital planning
planning.
committee. That is separate from the finance committee,
And who appoints the long range,
or not long range, but just capital planning.
the capital fund?
I don't know. I think the select board might.
I'm pretty sure. we have it. What's the deal? Document. And cheat sheet. So capital planning committee appointed by select board. That's in bylaw 42-1 for your reading pleasure. The constables are still in there as appointed by select board. Did we just vote that
We
they
just
would be?
voted that out.
So that
No,
hasn't
we
been,
just voted that in, that
So they'll be
constables
appointed.
will
would
be
be,
appointed.
Appointed.
okay, yeah. So I think it still says elected on there,
Or is
but
it-
they'll update it
We approved it at town meeting
to go on to.
to go onto the ballot, and on the ballot, it was approved.
So
Not,
squeaker.
it was a squeaker. It was the closest one, I think.
It's like, what they anyone would care about.
But now the constables are appointed. However, the two who were re-elected, continue it to the end of their term.
And then they'll.
In an ideal world, would you have the moderator appoint the finance committee?
I find it odd.
Yeah.
Where the select board appoints the capital planning committee?
Could the town administrator, could we add that to the bylaw that the town administrator appoints the finance committee?
Let's kick it around.
Is as knowledgeable as the moderator, if not more.
It makes no sense to me to have the moderator.
Would make more sense to have the town treasurer appoint. They do what money matters.
It would, yeah.
The bylaw specifically says the treasurer can't be on the finance committee.
Right. So,
But actually, if we whole thing, we just finished up with the TA and then we get back to the finance committee.
okay, so skip down to finance. Where were we? It's a lot, we have a lot of words. All right, transfer personnel to that based on experience, copies of notices, blah, blah, that, I don't know that that needs to be in there, but they have it in South Hadley. So administrative duties. What we have now is in black. And we talked about this briefly, the reorganize, consolidate, again, they apparently. They know they can do that already. I don't think anyone would question it since it's got to be approved by the select board. I don't know that we need to spell it out. So this is all we have for budget. Compile the annual operating budget and the annual capital improvements program for all town agencies and submit to the board. Bill had that, you had the whole saga of how they actually go about doing that, but.
Yeah.
Is that something that needed to, do we feel needs to be put in here?
Well, it's also one of the first, isn't it sort of almost in the preamble of of it as well, that, it's like preparing the budget is one of the prime
Yeah,
functions of the town administrator.
there.
It's right at the very beginning is, it's like that.
Sorry, I don't have hard copies of this because my printer is not wanted to deal with me lately. I just selected to sit out.
The language about giving the town administrator the authority to transfer staff
Mhm.
based on need, could that potentially violate union contracts?
Yeah, it could.
It could,
So it wouldn't apply to those,
Yeah.
those people.
yeah, we could put in, nothing in this permits the violation of the
Yeah.
collective bargaining
Yeah.
agreement. We can add a little phrase if we need to. There's a transfer person. Helpful. Okay.
Yeah, 6.3.
Yeah, that's where we just were.
I thought we were beyond that by now.
Well, a lot of this is plugged in, so 6.3, all this red stuff is,
Okay.
so what we actually have now is supervise, direct, and be responsible for efficient administration, compile the annual operating budget. Which, yeah, the only thing I think there is, is whether we think it's helpful to spell out the current process that Bill had described, because it seems they've worked out a nice system that's on their own, but I don't know if we want to put it in writing
No.
or just let them keep doing it.
I think not, because it really is so dependent on who's sitting where.
Yeah,
I agree.
that makes sense.
Robin Crosby was a strong budgeter. David Nixon came in with strong budget experience. Carolyn came in with no budget experience, and that's where it sort of evolved that the treasurer started doing treasurer slash finance director started doing a lot of the budgeting because there was no one else doing it.
That's,
And certainly of the candidates who were interviewed currently, again, no one had strong budgeting experience.
luckily we have people who,
So as long as
Who
we
can do
have
that?
people who do, but it's one of those things you want to be careful to not
tie their hands.
go in too much detail.
And, you know, just says compile the annual operating budget, they also have authority to delegate anything, so if they ask the whoever to come up with a first draft, that they are compiling the annual budget, so.
Yeah.
That covers it. This is one of the things where I don't know if we want to give more authority. It says assist the select board in the recruitment and selection of department heads by making recommendations. I think that's what we're talking about them doing. It's already there, that they would recommend a chief of police that's
Well-
assisting.
Yeah, so we can, I think we might wanna. That one might need some modification because not all department heads are,
We could just list
that-
the ones that we had at the
yeah,
top.
in the A section is police chief, fire chief, and DPW director. The B section was everyone else, so the
Yeah,
town
that's where
administrator could hire the HR director,
that's right.
the actually of the people in town hall, bunch of them report to independent boards like Park and Rec,
Assessment.
assessors, town clerk, and that's about it. HR is the only town hall department, I think, that is reporting directly to the administrator or select board.
I'll spell out the ones that were in the section, but what I did myself here is strike out "and employees" because the change we're looking to make is not submit recommendations to the select board for lower level employees. So I just
Although,
crossed that.
I
out.
think we would want to have a
Notification.
I don't know, yeah, more than a notification, it's almost like the subject to reversal by the select board or something like that,
Yeah,
so that the select board has a voice, but not
they don't have to weigh in if they don't
they
want
don't
to.
have to wait if they don't want to.
Like a provision about will present to the select board hiring decisions and
Yeah.
allow them
So, well, it's
time
important,
to weigh in if they
yeah,
want.
it's important to get that driver for the snowplow before tonight's storm, but it may not be as important to get a
Building.
new HR
inspector.
director,
Yeah,
right away.
we say they will notify the select board. And if they don't hear anything, they can make this decision, something like that.
Something like
Come
that.
up with something.
Some sort of,
Absent objection, they can go ahead with it a week later or 2 weeks
Yeah.
later. Cause one of the things that Molly and David have been saying is that it takes so long. Like we've gotta, I think we wanna hire this guy, we've gotta wait for the next meeting we can get on the agenda. They don't necessarily just get on the next agenda and then who knows what. So if we can put it in so that, they notify the select board and then absent objection, they can go ahead with the decision in, I don't know how much time.
they did go through hiring 3 people on a single motion last night.
Nice.
And,
Wow.
the HR director said, she was an item on the agenda. I have, these 3 people, I forget what they were now, that we're recommending. I think 2 were in DPW and 1 was somewhere else,
Yeah,
maybe even in HR. Motion, second, any comments? No? So that went very quickly. And,
wonder if people are that it's going okay now, but they're concerned someone could be elected who then wants to discuss this for like an hour every time I don't know if that's what part of the concern
There
is.
certainly is a potential concern that anytime you want to hire someone for a new position, that can trigger a budget discussion,
That's true.
which can go on for a while.
Well, yeah, new positions probably should be discussed by
Yeah.
the select board, but just,
Do we need to fill this position?
yeah,
So there's something to be said for letting those decisions be made at the administrator level and but the select board should be able to weigh in if they want
there's
to.
some sort of like notice and comment sort of thing. But put a timeline on it, so it's.
Yeah, definitely.
So they just, if the select board doesn't say anything, you don't have to keep waiting, you just, at that date, you can go. All right,
Or maybe that would be an alternate language clause that the select board really feels that they aren't ready to give up. You know, to David's point, yes, they can spend a lot of time on this, but they seem to like spending the time to some extent. And maybe maybe they should be allowed to have a role or not have a role. And maybe that's just how you have two clause Cs.
yeah,
Well, if they take up an enormous amount of time in this area, you know, discussing appointments, then they don't have to worry about long-range planning.
That's true. Talk about what you know.
Or what you'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
Especially if we can avoid something we don't want to talk about. Or don't feel well, like we're good at.
I don't know, attend all regular meetings at same time, the microphone. Go to town meeting. Keep the select board informed as to financial conditions and needs of the town. Seems pretty. We need a lot more words to get to that. Coordinate the activities of, so we don't have the town accountant.
We do have a town
Oh.
accountant, but it's a
That's a
contract.
contract, okay, so they would still need to coordinate that. Treasurer, collector, and board of assessors, so we can leave that alone.
Who selects the town accountant? Select board.
Select board, but with the input from the treasurer and collector.
That seems like a high enough level position to keep at the select board. So we have the simple in black, enforce the policies of select board, votes of town meeting and bylaws. South Hadley has, it's basically the same thing, but with a lot more words. And I'm guessing this is some sort of liability thing that they keep putting at the end. All acts are performed under such delegation shall be deemed to be acts of the town administrator. So if someone wants to sue someone for the act, they sue the town administrator, not the select board. Is that what that's about?
She's suing the town.
Either way,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know why they add that to a lot of these paragraphs. All acts that are performed are deemed to be the acts of the town administrator. Seems like some sort of weasel language. Yeah, I personally find with the simple version we have. So the next section is one of the things I think that they want us to think about. And I think we've sort of decided not to change any lines of reporting, but just flagging this. This is general supervision of personnel, organization, systems, and practices of the select board's office, which is an undefined term. I think, what is the select board's office? I mean, I guess everyone knows everyone under the jurisdiction of select board, but I find that language a little odd.
There's another one of this act
Oh,
hanging in there.
this or another one. Town administrator would be getting. Organization. New computer, so get used to this with mouse and thing. I miss my work computer.
So currently, who is involved with the collective bargaining process?
HR and the town administrator and the department head.
So I struck that out here because in the financial duties that is in the South Hadley version, it has, is it something more definite, which I kind of like that.
Okay, yeah, I think that looks better.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, you can't have a select board negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, I don't think. So I like this language personally.
Yeah, I don't think historically they have negotiated, well, recently, they've negotiated directly. They will go into executive session to discuss, ratify.
Yeah. that makes
Then
sense.
if they ratify it, then they have to re-vote it in open session. But I don't think they are directly involved with collective bargaining.
Yeah. Assist the select board in the collective bargaining process. So I like the South Hadley language better. I think it better states what we're actually doing, that the town administrator is. They're not so much assisting in the bargaining, they are doing the bargaining and bringing it to the select board for approval. This is more of what we already have, act as liaison, represent the select board for state, federal, and regional authorities. Hold periodic meetings with department heads and employees under the control of the select board. Perform any other duties required. So this is more very detailed stuff to be considered or not. Developing a data systems, personnel systems. We can go with, that's obviously part of their job and they're already doing it, so we don't need to add to this, or we can decide we want some more detailed language like these provisions.
Sorry,
The computer wants to know if we're playing music. That's a little creepy.
Big brother.
Yeah, like, can't you tell? I know it's a kind of an old song, but it's well known. Anyone have any thoughts on these things?
I do think South Hadley has a larger
Workforce.
workforce than
Yeah.
we do.
I don't think it's necessary. We already have that the town administrator will keep the select board notified of the town's finances, which is at the end there. But we can also look at I didn't look at the other two samples to see if they had anything like this that we might like. Personally, not blown away by needing to add this.
About 12 years ago, I was on a personnel handbook committee. I don't know if that still exists.
It does.
It
It does.
but it only applies to non-union employees.
Not too many under the select board jurisdiction
Well, yeah,
who aren't
yeah.
the HR director.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that there is a town hall staff union now. But it includes people who work across multiple departments, including elected departments.
Hmm.
So,
It's complex.
so for instance, actually, the tax collector is now appointed too. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure how many people are in it.
So this, I think, is already. I mean, I don't know if we were explicit when we quickly check our. I don't think we have an explicit thing about the town buildings in our current bylaw.
Yeah, I started trying to take more detailed notes, and I was thinking that probably this would make more sense if once everyone gets a chance to see it and mark it up.
Yeah,
So I'm just calling this
general discussion.
continue comparison of Hadley versus South Hadley.
That works. So I kind of like the idea of adding something for being responsible for town buildings, properties and facilities. It's implied, but
Yeah, very important.
I like it. We don't have anything that says, maybe someone else, maybe the town clerk does this, this one's caused full and complete records of meetings of the select board to be taken and maintained and compile reports of meetings. Someone's doing it.
That's Jennifer.
Okay, so the town administrator.
Well, admits, yeah.
It tells Jennifer to, you don't need to tell Jennifer to do anything,
Uh,
she knows. But
Yeah.
if it was not Jennifer, God forbid, it would be instructed to do that by the town administrator, I guess. Approving all grant requests submitted on behalf of the town. You don't have any grants we approve, do we?
we do.
We do.
There's some.
You give grant?
Yeah.
Can I get one? What are they for?
Town has, some of them are like emergency grants to repair washouts, and
Oh,
others are
Environmental.
the fires. Not really super environmental. I know the fire department's always applying for grants for staffing and equipment. So yeah, there are grants. It is not a major source. Well, we even have a grant for 25,000, the state, to support the planning board, to support the 40R study committee.
now I would think we get a fair amount of grants from the state, but this sort of reads like. Oh, so is this saying that this approving somebody's gonna write up a request to submit to the state?
Yeah.
And the town administrator approves that application?
Yeah.
That's, okay, I was reading it like he was approving the grant application.
You don't necessarily want to have a situation where
People are randomly firing off.
3 departments are
Yeah,
applying for grants of varying degrees of importance. You might
Someone
want to
should-
say,
Board-
you two have to wait, you get to apply this year because you're
So,
more important.
I like adding something like that then, because we don't have anything about it in our current bylaw.
Many of the grants do require a sign off
By a
from
town official.
a town official, either the chief elected official, which is we construe to be the select board chair, or the chief manager.
Sense.
Because the grant people have the same concern. They don't want to be throwing money
Did we just get
it's-
$200,000 to one guy in Hadley? Yeah, I think you want to know the town's on board. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I would hope the school committee applies for many
Oh,
grants.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
do, yeah.
Although
The grant,
those are drying up quickly as we speak.
right, grant writing is a valuable skill for application writing. So this, they have a whole section in South Hadley for the financial responsibilities. As we already discussed, I like this collective bargaining section. Procurement, we don't have specifically anything about procurement in the current bylaw. Approval of basically making payments. Well, you guys could, this is, I'm not gonna read all this out loud, but when you get a copy in your abundant free time, look and see if you think we want to go into any of this detail when we amend our bylaw. Yeah, it's this whole section, but details about the budget, which we kind of discussed already. Maybe let them have the freedom to do it the way they want.
Well, I think it's good to have a structure.
Yeah.
Just not to pin down exactly who's going to do it versus who's going to be responsible for seeing that it gets done.
That makes sense. Yeah, this just those people will help give the town administrator what they need, which is so the last. These are just sort of. This one's not boilerplate. We don't have a provision right now for what the select board does when they don't like something that the town administrator's done, removal or suspension. This would give us some structure for how they approach any issues with the town administrator. Although given how hard it is to find a new one, I would very much hesitate to remove one. But,
That probably should be reviewed by town council.
oh, yeah.
Because you get into personnel matters and you get open meeting,
Executive session.
executive session, but you could also the subject of the complaint or investigation can waive executive privilege for having it held an open session. So
Yeah.
it's I mean, there's a lot in the open meeting law and probably some other matters on, which is why everyone always says, well, it's a personnel matter, we can't comment on. There's got to be more to it.
Yeah. Yeah, town council's gonna have to look at all of this stuff, but this did get past whoever in the AG's office,
Yeah.
to be in the special act that South Hadley has, so
So South Hadley would have had their town council review this.
I assume. And then the AG's office, when you have a special act, that has to go, once you get it through all the town hurdles, the state has to sign off on. This is one of the things that's on the Collins Center chart at the beginning, the continuation of existing government language. This is just basically your kind of boilerplate saying, just because we change this bylaw doesn't mean anything else changes.
Mhm.
I don't know if
It's fine.
yeah, it's legalese, which is handy. But that is the extent of what I cut and paste from South Hadley. I will send this to you guys so you can look through it more closely, and if you want to look at the other two samples, I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Hanover and I'm blanking on the other one.
It's affected, not effective. That's why it's underlined.
Yeah. How did that get through everybody in South Bend? Although it's affecting a change, it's not be affected. That wasn't. You will. So what else do they have on the agenda? You especially like bylaw amendment, cabinet is determined.
The only thing left to discuss, if we want to take a few extra minutes, we're already at an hour, is John's concern about who chooses the finance.
Yeah. I think, is that, well, I guess it's in our remit, even if we don't think the town administrator should do it, because this is a whole form of governance. So if we have a recommendation for a different way to do that, we can, what the Collins Center says generally is the end of this sort of group is, we'll have a draft of whatever act, bylaw, whatever we want to do, and a memo saying like what we did, what we think maybe should be considered at another time, or, you know, if we want to say, if we decide that we think the town should look at making more positions appointed than elected, or if we think they should change the finance committee being appointed by someone else other than the moderator, that can all be in that memo that we submit to the, you know, any recommendations we have for either further study, or we've discussed it and we think this is what you should do, but you do what you want, of course.
I think it's fine within our authority to discuss.
Yeah, and then we can, it doesn't have to be in this, whatever this document is, it can be in that memo. But yeah, I think, so our bylaw specifically says who cannot be on the finance committee, and I think the concept is that none of those people should be selecting the finance committee, because it's the same as them. In theory, it could be like, I can't be on the committee, but I picked my sister and she'll represent my interests, so we don't want that. So that might be how they end up with the moderator, like, well, who else is like a
I think
town administrator is another option, I think.
it was, but just totally by default. Give the person something,
He wasn't at
give
that
the
meeting.
moderator something to do.
Yeah, so, but because both the select board, the treasurer account, where is it? I've got that somewhere. I don't know, I have it in. Finance committee appointed by moderator cannot be members, select board, school committee, and town treasurer. So you wouldn't want any of those being appointing authority, since they're the ones basically the finance committee is checking, I think.
So you probably don't want the administrator to be the appointer either, because they are under the jurisdiction of the select.
It might have been a rather elegant solution they came up with. If you feel your moderator understands finance in any way.
Yeah, which is not guaranteed.
No. But so just as a practical matter, I think it's really a matter of making a number of people be on the, I mean, there's not people clamoring to join the finance committee, I don't think. It's not like you're beating off hundreds of people. It may be more of a recruiting,
It is,
Fair.
definitely.
like, hey, you want to be on the finance committee? Oh, no. So you need, my moderator's a good talker. They might be good at selling. No, the finance committee's great. You would love to be on it. So I don't know what the alternative. What else could do it?
I'd like to, between now and the next meeting, I'd like to, ask a couple of the selectmen what they think might be the best way to.
Yeah.
Find some.
It's interesting. Yeah,
Well, for example, Molly is an accountant,
right.
and, I asked the treasurer too, you know. Well, who do you think we should, how should we appoint the finance?
It's definitely worth. Who is our town treasurer?
And what
That's
does
something I should
Southampton
know.
say?
Who's our town treasurer?
Linda Sanderson.
Oh, you know her.
What does,
No, I know she's finance. I just didn't know which one of the things
She's
she is.
treasurer and finance director.
Oh, okay. Who's the collector? Was the collector just collect,
Just-
but they don't make any decisions?
And there's a recommendation of merging the treasurer and collectors department, which many towns have done.
Yeah,
Um, but it'd be at a different level. You'd still, in that case, if you had a merged department like Amherst does, you still need a finance director. Because the treasurer in a merged department is balancing checkbooks and
Yeah,
making deposits and
day to day.
So in that case, do they need a finance committee?
oh, well, first of all, it's statutory.
So yes,
And so,
Do we have a finance?
yeah.
Oh,
And secondly, yeah, you still need a finance committee because their job is to look at the budget. There has been a debate about whether it's the finance committee's job to prepare the budget, which apparently it is in some communities, versus the administrator's job to prepare the budget and have the finance committee study it.
yeah, it seems to me they're a check on the people currently in the town government who will be spending the money and using the money and like,
The idea is like us looking at town form of government,
Yeah.
that there be some people who have agreed to actually put some time into studying the budget
have no real
versus-
personal interest in it.
versus the percentage of people who show up at town meeting, pick up the budget handout and look at it for the first time while they're waiting for the meeting.
Right. That makes sense.
So then theoretically, if you don't care enough to get involved early, but you would like to hear what the highlights are.
Yeah. She said, oh, collection of citizens doing that for us. God bless them.
So how does Kirk Watley, our moderator, how does he even decide who to approach serving on the committee? I mean,
I have no
I
idea.
would hope that he's approaching people who have a background in business, finance, money, banking.
I don't know.
It completely depends on who's in the mood.
I
You
suspect
can,
if you
well, we
tell
do
him
have-
you'd like to be on it, he'll keep your name for as soon as there's.
we do have a banker on it, Amy Biden.
Yeah.
Some business people,
Paul Benjamin.
Paul Benjamin, Shardul Parmar, and Peter Matusko.
Mhm.
And who else?
Well, I think there's something to be said for there being just a resident who,
A cross section.
just sort of, that seems like a lot of money to spend on that, So they don't necessarily have to be a financial expert to just be a sounding board. To a certain extent, but it's good that we have business people.
Yeah, you do want people to
Banker.
have some sense of what they're doing. I
Yeah,
know we had a finance committee, they had trouble filling it. And they got 4 new people and one who had been on only for a couple of years, and David Nixon spent quite a bit of time
training.
going through the budget with them, not only just going through the numbers, but here's the DPW budget and here's what the DPW does, and
Oh,
who's in
wow.
charge of the DPW. And he invested a huge amount of time in this training, and I don't think any of those were still there 2 years later.
Oh, man.
So,
Yeah, good if they know what they're looking at when they're coming the door. Interesting.
Plus you have to understand the current town borrowing and interest rates on bonds when they expire and when they're paid off.
I've been, I've only been back for a while, but I've been impressed with how the town does its finances, like, sort of spacing out large purchases so that, yes, we've raised taxes, but they just sort of stay raised instead of going spiking. I think they do a really good job.
I attribute that to Linda.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She does a really good job. She's not allowed to stop.
maybe I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Should we schedule next one first?
first Thursday,
in July by,
Any objections? It's not like the fourth or anything, is it?
is it?
Oh,
Is it?
it's the third. If you're going away for the 4th of July, you might not want a meeting on the 3rd. I'm not going, but I know,
We could do the 10th.
that's the 10th.
yeah,
It's the second Thursday.
and
Works for me. You good with the 10th? July?
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Okay.
I'll second the motion, by the way.
Back to adjourn.
To adjourn.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye.